Hi, my name is Greg Keene. I want to welcome you to Toasted Soul. Toasted Soul is a podcast hosted by me, Greg Keene. Toasted Soul will be exploring technology news, business news, and just general rants on life. Let's get into it.
So welcome back, guys. This is Toasted Soul. Today I have with me Diana Imonikhe. Diana, why don't you introduce yourself to Toasted Soul?
Hi, everyone. I'm Diana. I could talk about so many things, but maybe we'll start with how I know Greg. Greg and I actually worked together several years ago. We won't say our age or when, but definitely more than 10 years ago. It's been that long.
Yeah.
So Greg is someone I've known a while. I mean, I think one thing we share in common is our love for entrepreneurship. So a lot of our conversations are usually around that. And I would say, what do people want to know about me? I guess we'll get into that today. But thank you, Greg, for having me. And hopefully we'll have some good conversations.
Thanks for joining us. So what's been going on with you, Diana?
So what's been going on with me? So I would say, I'm a York University alumni. So I met York at York University. And again, if there's a baby in the background, it's not a recording, it's a real baby. So if you do hear a baby cooing every now and again, it's because I am a working mom. So obviously, I do have to juggle the home life as well, given COVID. So yeah, so that's a little bit about the background.
You're working from home right now?
So I'm home right now. I'm on maternity leave. I do have my full-time job, and I do a couple of other projects here and there. One of the things that is exciting as a York alumni that recently came up with me is an opportunity to teach part-time. So I'm actually teaching part-time at the university. As someone who met York at the university, working at the student union, it's kind of a nice opportunity to be able to go back in a different capacity and to bring my skill set. So basically what I've been doing for my work life, I'll be able to bring that to the classroom. I think that type of, and as a woman, I would say a Nigerian Canadian woman of color, Black woman, to have an opportunity to come back in a capacity to teach, especially at a time like this, I think is such a blessing. It's a platform that I don't take lightly. I want to be able to use it to teach content about finance, but given my own unique perspective, I think I bring something different to the table, right? So so that's something I would say. So that's what I'm doing now as something that I'm doing on the side, as something that I find is interesting right now. One of the things I like to do in my class is to bring in a little bit of my culture. So I teach I tell my students about my culture. I tell them, my background is from Nigeria. I talk a little bit about my experiences growing up in Nigeria. I talk about how it's different moving to Canada and, just seeing what my experience has been like as a woman in Canada. So I'll give you something that happened to me recently, and I'll share this. I don't think I've shared it with too many people, probably my inner circle. So while I was pregnant with my second child, for the first time ever, I got pulled over for traffic violation. And it was, I had, what's the word? Rolled through a stop sign.
Okay.
First time ever, okay? I got pulled over. And I was pregnant.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, Greg, you saw me when I was pregnant.
Yeah.
Could you tell I was pregnant?
I saw you a long time ago, though.
So this would have been maybe 2 months after I saw you.
Oh,
yeah. So, hold on 1 second. Oh, can you take him? Are you able to just give me 15 minutes? I'm getting help because baby is not having it.
Is that your mom?
No, Andrew.
Oh, what's up, Andrew?
Oh, he says, "Hey, Andrew, good looking out, partner." Oh, hold on. He's like grabbing onto the Gee, thanks, Kevin. Your mom was trying to be great today. Can you just let your mom be great? He doesn't care.
No, not at all.
He's like, I want your attention. Stop.
Yeah.
I can hear you and you're not giving me attention. Anyways, so I was talking about while pregnant with Kevin, being stopped for a traffic violation for the first time and being terrified because I'm like, so everything aside, your successes, your accomplishments mean nothing in this moment because you are being profiled.
Yeah.
Right? And even scarier because now you're a mom and you're protecting your kids.
Mm-hmm.
This is your baby that is not even born yet, and your instinct as a mom is to protect your kid, right? And because again, you're sitting in the car, chest, stomach up, like hot, like they're not going to see that you're pregnant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all I could do is nod and smile.
Right.
Nod, smile, and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's a scary situation. I mean, like, I'm super old. I fear nothing, but it's an anxiety-filled moment. I know how it is. Yeah.
Right? And just to be like, somebody's yelling at you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the stop sign?
Yeah.
And to make it even worse, I was rushing to catch the GO train to go to work when this happened. So there was nothing in my mind at that time but trying to catch my train.
Yeah.
So I looked at the stop sign. I thought I'd stopped, but no, I was just rushing. So I didn't realize whether I rolled through or I didn't stop or it wasn't a full stop or whatever. So when he asked me, he's like, didn't you see the sign? I'm like, I don't even know what to say because I was rushing. I was thinking about the train.
Yeah.
I wasn't
Your mind was somewhere else.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so when he asked me, did you see it? Why didn't you stop? I was like, I don't know. Did I stop? Like, I'm just like,
yeah. And you know what? With these situations, it's like they sit at places where they know this certain thing happens all the time. So then why don't you just correct it? Obviously, people are not stopping for a reason. Why don't you figure out why they're not stopping and make it so that they have to stop? Or like, you know that people speed down this certain area and they stop there and they stop people all the time. So do something. It's obviously that it's a psychological thing. It's not that people are probably doing it on purpose.
Trying to break the law, right?
Yeah, they're doing it unconsciously.
Yes. So I think the minute, and in my situation that morning, I saw the train coming. So as I'm coming in, I'm seeing the train. I'm not really like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to miss my train.
Yeah.
And then to add to that, right, like I had a doctor's appointment earlier that day. So I was also thinking, I don't want to miss my appointment because I needed to go. So I don't think I thought it all the way through. For me, it was just in that moment, I saw the train and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to miss the train.
Right.
Right.
And that's probably what it is right there. That's like the psychological thing that I'm saying. They should somehow block that off so people can't see that train. Because that's probably this is probably like not a unique situation. It's probably lots of people like you, they see their train coming, so they speed up and they're not paying attention to what's going on.
So, and the thing about it is there was no one at the stop sign. So this was not a situation where I was going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Right? I looked and there was no one there. Right?
Yeah.
But then I saw this guy standing there. But it didn't occur to me that he was a police officer. Why would a random police officer with no police car in sight be there?
Yeah.
So I felt like it was a situation where I was set up to fail.
Yeah.
And I failed because it's not a fair situation, right?
Yeah.
And so when someone talks to me and asks me as a Nigerian Canadian, especially in a time like this, is there racism in Canada? I'm like, no, it's microaggression.
Little things that are just out there, right?
It's stuff like this that is microaggression, right? So nobody is calling me out of my name, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. But on a day like this, I'm like, this is not fair. There's no way I was gonna win in this situation, right? Because for me, winning that day meant, so he went through, and this is even the part that gets better, Greg. He says, he runs a record. He runs my record, so to speak, and finds nothing.
Yeah.
And comes back and he's like, "You've never been pulled over before, ma'am?" I'm like, "No." "This is your first time?" I'm like, "Yes."
Right.
And he's like, "Nah." So he goes back to go run it again. And at this point, I'm like, I just want to go to get the next train because this shit is wasting my time. Because the longer we're here, just give me a ticket at this point.
Yeah. And it's like they take their own little time, right? And
Just
it's like,
give me a ticket.
I see the thing that you write up. It's not like you're writing this essay. It's like, just put my name down, the date, and my license plate, and just get it done with. But they know what they're doing because they're fucking with you, right? They take forever. Like, it's
So
like,
it goes back, and he's like, this whole thing of I'm trying to find something that you've violated. You've had a traffic violation before. No, this is the first time. Right? And so now he has to make a call because he's like, do you write somebody up the first time for running a stop sign at a GO station trying to miss the train? Right? Because is that a fair situation?
Yeah.
Or do I let them go? But if I let them go, then I'm losing. You know what I mean? So the police officer. So it's one of those things where I thought it was interesting because I could see he was like trying to be right. And I'm just like, okay, nod, smile, nod, smile, all right, because I'm not trying to get shut up because of a stop sign.
Right.
So this is me in that moment picking and choosing my battle, right? And I say this to Black people, pick and choose. Someday, you just being alive is the battle that you've won that day.
Yeah, right.
Right?
You've made it.
You've made it that day. For me, protecting I knew was a son because I knew at this point I'd done the gender reveal. I knew I was having a son. So for me, it wasn't just protecting myself. If I get shut up, what is the likelihood that my son will survive? Right. So this is now making a call to say, I'm protecting my son, right? And then to just sit there and take it and like whatever you're taking, Diana, you're taking it for, there's a greater purpose here. So don't get caught up in this one moment and start to give him reason to actually shoot your ass. Right?
Yeah.
So,
well, it's not even given reason, right? Like,
and this is not even to say that anyone is justified in shooting you, but now I'm like, for me right now, I'm saying like I just want this to be over, right? And that's why I say the whole notion of a lot of us have gone through our lives in this country, just wanting it just let's just move forward. But how long can we continue to do that when we see that the change that is required will sometimes require this resistance that we're now seeing in the streets, right? So in January, when this happened to me, I never thought that by July, this is where the world would be.
Yeah.
Right.
2020 is a shocker for everybody, man.
So this was in July of 2020. January of 2020 when I'm talking about that this incident happened, right?
Yeah.
And it has stayed with me since then. Because if I ever thought for a second that racism was not alive in Canada, that day reminded me of exactly what could have happened, right?
Yeah.
And in the end, he said to me, I'm gonna let you go with a warning. But it will be a written warning. I never knew that even a written warning existed. I thought when they warn you, they just tell you to go and that's it.
Yeah.
I got a written warning, right? I've been in situations with my spouse where he's done situations or whatever, or even other friends where they've been let go. There was no written warning. So what exactly is it that required me to have a written warning, right?
Yeah.
And I remember when I got in the car, I called my husband right away, Andrew, and I'm like, this is why I'm going to be working from home because I don't want to really
right.
You know, and I went on this whole like rant, and he's like, "What happened?" I got pulled over. on my way to work with
Mhm.
my pregnant belly. And
Yeah.
this
I can see
trying
how
to
like
catch the GO train.
it's so traumatic, like especially your first time, right? You don't know, and then you've heard all this stuff in the
And
news.
I'm by myself. This is not even like I
Yeah.
was with friends. Like I was with him even. I'm like, listen, the times that maybe you've even gotten pulled over, there are other people in the car. Can you imagine what this
Mhm.
was?
Scary
And
time.
my older son can overhear me because this was on the when I called in the car. He was taking my older son to school.
Mhm.
So my son is like, Mom, what happened? Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And now it's this whole thing, right?
Mhm.
It's this whole thing of like, my son is like, why? Why did they pull you over? I'm like, yeah, I did something bad. I'm not saying I didn't do something bad. But now I'm like, now it was scary, right? And then my son is like, oh, Mom, it's okay. You know, it's this. Don't worry. Like, you know, this whole thing, right? So I just feel like, and that is even, like I said, what you would call a microaggression. That's not even like a situation where you are even in where we're looking at George Floyd getting killed on
Yeah.
camera. This is not even that, right?
Right.
This
But
is not even, it's a smaller but the point I'm trying to make is that in Canada, microaggression is what almost you have a little of those, like let's say 10 or 15 or 20 of those smaller incidents, they start to build up, right?
yeah.
So it almost gets to a point where it starts to rob you of your energy, of your time, because now you're thinking about it when you should have been thinking of, I don't know, like we talked about entrepreneurship. The time I've now spent thinking about those little microaggressions, I've taken time away from things that are important to me.
Yeah. From your life.
Yes, right? So I think that as much as I encourage people now to speak up, speaking up will take different forms.
Mhm.
For some of us, it's going to be being women and showing our representation through our professional excellence, right? So through being maybe one of a percentage of minorities to even have a seat at some tables, right? So for
Mhm.
some of us, it's even that. For some of us, it's going to be in the protest, being out in the streets protesting. For some of us, it's going to be pushing to have policies changed, the laws changed, right? So I feel like one of the things I wanted to do with your Toasted Soul was to kind of bring in stories that I think are important, are relevant,
Yeah.
but force people to really think about what their place is, right, in this now movement, right? So what exactly is your place? Deciding.
We
Hmm?
all have a place right now. Like it's a civil thing, right? It's a humanity thing, and we all have, no matter what color or creed or makeup we all have a place to play
In
in
change.
in change and getting to a place where everybody's happy, not just some people are happy,
That's
right?
right.
And where things are equal or just better, like you know what I mean. So it's everybody's got a place,
Yeah, so think about 2008 when you and I talked about you going to volunteer for the Obama campaign,
right?
right? So think about moments like that.
Yeah,
Um, I want to see a moment like that as a Nigerian Canadian or Black Canadian. I want to see that in Canada. I want to see the first Black Prime Minister right
yeah.
here, right? I want to see more politicians represented, right? And how do we get that, right? Like, so there's so many ways that it doesn't show up here in Canada, right? For us, that we don't get the representation that we should be having. It's not a question of us not being smart enough or not having the qualifications. So what is it that keeps us from getting to that level of success, right? So these are the questions I hope we'll be having in Canada, right?
But I mean, like we had shoot, I forget his name on the NDP. Singh, his last name I think is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm,
So I
mm-hmm.
mean, like that's progress. Like he can, like he's in there, and I feel like one day maybe it's not a black person, but at least it's a person of color.
Mhm.
I think any kind of representation, even if it's like a female, it changes where we are or where we've been going for so long, where it's just been a white male. It's always been a white male. So for me, I'd love to see a black person in a position like that.
Of power in Canada. Yeah.
Right. But if it's an Indian fellow or an Asian guy or
another minority,
yeah, that shows progress, right?
Mhm.
And for us as Black people, we know that we are the most downtrodden. Eventually we'll get there because we don't stop fighting. Like they've tried to wipe us out, or systems have tried to wipe us out for so long, but still we're here and still we're rising up. So for me, it's like, I know it's a slow walk, and I believe like Canada is progressive. Most of Canada is progressive enough that one day I'll see a Black female or a white female or a gay person or an Indian person or a Chinese person in the position of power, like prime minister. I know that's coming. I think it just takes some time. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I know it's going to happen. Like we've seen so much change over the past few years, and especially now where we have this uprising, I definitely see change coming. Like if you can win the hearts and minds of the youth, that's where it starts, right? Yeah. Because the youth is what turns out to be either a racist or a non-racist. If you teach them right, and they know. And
I think the youth are probably the ones in some way giving me a little bit of hope. Yeah. I'm talking like across the board, because so I'll give you an example. The other day I was at the park with my son, and we were at the tennis courts. And so basically the families who got there first, obviously they had the spaces first. So they were using it. And we kind of just went off because I was thinking that day, we don't really need to be, what's the word? We didn't used to do the court. It was our first time actually going to be trying tennis. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to practice just shots.
I think I saw that picture of you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So we went, so that was probably now the second time. So the first time we just went to practice shots. So we were just using like an open space. And there were two kids that were there playing. And I remember when they saw we went over and we were playing in a different area that wasn't on the tennis court, they actually came up to us and they're like, no, we can leave, right? Like if you guys want to play, we'll leave.
Right.
Put it this way, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Right? Like in the old way of thinking, they would have just stayed there.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that's what it is, right? People just hold their ground.
Yeah. So this is now it was a younger kid on a bike. He rode his bike up to where we were, and he said, "No, you guys are welcome to go there. We're gonna leave, so you guys can go there and play." Right. So what I say is that. And then in
the white kids?
Yes.
Oh.
Two white kids. Awesome. Yeah. Right? They came up to him, they're like, no, because my son is probably would be around the same age, maybe that kid would be 3 or 4 years older than my son. Mm-hmm. So he's not that much older than my son. So he came up to us and he's like, no, you guys should go there and play. Like, we'll leave. Right? What am I trying to say? That to me, maybe small progress, but it's progress nonetheless. Because where I was before, where I feel like I was in Canada before, I would have had to be the one to go there and say, no, we want to be on the court.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I would say that even since this whole George Floyd particularly, I would say people have been extremely nice.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
No, I noticed it too.
But extremely nice. And almost to a point where when we went to Home Depot recently, usually to get one person to help you was a chore, right? Mm-hmm. Now we were leaving and had almost 10 people helping us.
Right. I think what's happening is with this niceness. It's like I run all the time. Mm-hmm. So like I pass people all the time and they're always like, it's like I live in the old school, like the Beaver town or something like that, Leave It to Beaver. And everybody's like, hey. I went back to them too. I'm like, holy, okay.
So when you went from being almost invisible to now you're like
Invisible
You're
is
like,
such a key word, dude. Like I've always tell people, like I'm like 200 pounds. I'm not as jacked as I used to be, but I used to walk down the street, down the sidewalk, and people would not see me. I'm like I can walk through you, like literally. I've
so
had
what does that feel like now for you?
before.
Right? What does that feel like for you now? Because
Now
I know how it makes me
I
feel.
like, well, to be honest, I like to be. I'm more low key, right?
Yes.
I want to disappear. I want to disappear as in like, don't talk to me. But I want to know that you know that I'm there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird, but like
Yeah.
now it feels. It's just like, yeah, I do exist, and I've been existing for 47 years. And now it's like today you notice me because we're like burning your shit down. You know what I mean? But like, I think it's an amazing time and it's wonderful because it's like, I like being by myself. So it's like, it doesn't like, but I know other people out there are hurt, you know what I mean? And it's like, finally they can be seen and finally they can be heard. And finally that story that we've been telling people like, hey, cops are assholes to Black people, minority people. White people are like, no, they are assholes to us, like literally. And it's like, oh, now people are like, oh shit. Oh my God. Yeah, they're assholes. They're real assholes. I mean, like you see the one where the cops push down the white man, the old white man. I think
my God.
they're waking up. They're like, oh my God, Black people are not lying.
I saw that one, and remember the guy couldn't even get up, and they just walked past him. Was that the same one you saw?
Yeah. So like for me, when I watch stuff like that, I just sit there and I use that analytical brain and I just pick out the pieces and I watch every single thing. And I watched them and I was like, he's not moving. Okay, that's blood coming from his head. Okay, it's coming out too fast, right? Yeah. Too fast and too much. So that means like it's a major injury. And
nobody's stopping.
Past them. I'm these are the police. These are the people that, first of all, they're there to protect white people. These are the people that are there to protect white people. They just knocked down a white man and he's literally dying on the sidewalk right now. Like the blood is coming out of his head, not out of his arm, but out of his head really fast. And they're not helping him. Like if your job is to help people and you literally can't help like the white people that you are designed to help, then there's something
the rest
wrong.
of us are finished, right?
Exactly. We're screwed.
Yeah, the rest of us are finished. I think this time we're in, honestly, the COVID pandemic was what you would say, it was a bad situation, right? Already.
Yeah.
Police brutality, with racism, and then you add COVID.
Mm-hmm.
A pandemic, right?
I think COVID
it's almost like a pandemic that you would watch in movies and think this could never happen in real life.
Yeah.
Right?
I think COVID was the pot, or like, all the stuff was put inside the pot and just COVID let it all brew and then it just boiled over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes. So this was not a situation where we didn't know, like the Trayvon Martins of the world. There were so many stories, Amadou Diallo, like so many stories.
Too many stories. History, it's not the first time.
So it's not to say we knew this. And so, but it didn't mean that the change was going to come overnight. And this is what I still say, like the change will be slow progress, right? So you don't have the revolution, right? Let's say, and then all the emotions and all the anguish that is associated with that will just go away, right? Mm-hmm. And even I'm mindful because remember I said to you, my Blackness as a Nigerian Canadian, I also had a different experience growing up, right? And it came from, so I would say I had lived at least my formative years in Nigeria, so good part of my years in Nigeria. So living there, when I came to Canada, I already had a certain mindset, right? So even if I fell into rough times in Canada, my upbringing is what really kept me going, right? Mm-hmm. So meaning that I will never compare myself to somebody who this is their home and then they don't have options. So put it this way, if push ever came to shove, right, in Canada for me, I knew I could go home.
Right.
But if this is your home, that's a different story. Right? If this is it for you, this is like your so I find that even though I I share my own experiences, what I've experienced since coming to Canada, I'm mindful that I don't speak for other people, that their stories are different from mine, right? So that's why I said to you when I was going to share my background, I think it's important for me to specifically say what my background is and what my upbringing is, because the stories that I've had as it relates to coming to Canada. So I'll give you another story that I always remember. So this was York University. So York University is in the Jane and Finch community, or what you would call Jane and Finch community. So when you're taking the buses, generally you have a mix of people. So you have people from the community, you have people that are students. It's a mix, right? Sometimes the way the bus drivers would talk to you when you, let's say, end up on the Jane bus or the Finch bus or the Keel bus, you'd be shocked. Sometimes the way the bus drivers would talk to the kids, so like the kids that go to some of the schools in the area that are not the greatest schools, let's say, right?
Yeah.
The way that I remember this one incident with a friend of mine who's now doing youth work in the community. At that time, she was a student at York. She was also in the student union as well. I think you probably even know her. But she was on the bus, on the bus, and was telling a story of how there were these two kids, being kids on the bus, they had pushed the window or something, right? And the bus driver's like, goes up to them. What are you guys doing or something, right? Like, so no, from the time they even gone on the bus driver's already saying something to them. And she says, as they went to sit down, they were playing. So, they're like being kids or whatever on the bus.
Yeah.
And she saw how one of their arms went up and hit, that emergency thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so hit the emergency thing. And the kid was like, uh-oh, right? And the bus driver just rushes up to them. The bus is out of service. Get off the bus. Get off the bus, right?
Yeah.
So these two kids get put off the bus. And so she goes up to them. She's like, sir, you've put them off the bus. How are they getting home? I don't care.
See, I'm that dude, man. I'll be like, I'll question you. Like this is, if I see something that's wrong, yeah, she did the right move.
She's like, but how are they going to get home? Like, do you even know how far away from home they are? You just put them on the bus. Even if they did the wrong thing, right? Don't just leave them out to just fend for themselves. Like, should they walk home in the cold because they did something bad? And so when she goes to try to talk to him, he says to her, who are you? What rights do you have to say anything? So now, and if you knew my friend, she's like, who are you talking to?
Exactly.
So now I'm going to be all up in this situation because who are you is the question, right? So when she says to him, who are you? She says, I am their representative. That's who I am. I am speaking up for these two kids. I can't say nothing because you are putting them off the bus and they should walk home. Did you ask them if they have bus fare? Did you ask them how far away from home they are? Did you make sure that you were ensuring their safety? No. So I have a couple of words for you. Call your supervisor, right? So now, as they're having this exchange, everybody, of course, at this point has to be off the bus because this is now an incident, right? And so she says, I'm their advocate and I am challenging you for neglecting these kids, for being neglectful. And as they're arguing, the school is not too far from the school the kids go to is not too far. And so now a teacher from the school who's Black shows up because he sees the bus stop and he sees the kids off the bus. He just starts walking to the bus and says, Ma'am, how dare you? And starts going at her and say, these two kids, blah, 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 blah. They're this, they're that, and whatever. And so she says, I don't care if they're bad. Mm-hmm. I don't care if they're the worst kids ever, right? First of all, you're supposed to be an educator. Shame on you, right? For not even coming and asking what happened, but to just label these two kids bad.
Right.
And now the kids are like, wow, we love this woman. She is, we want to be like her. She doesn't take no mess from these people.
Right.
We want to be like her when we grow up, because somebody needs to speak up for us. Because, yes, we did what we did, but to put it so long story short, right? I would say that she went on to work for Toronto District School Board, and she became quite passionate about youth issues, right? But I think it's because being at York and seeing the community that we were in and seeing how youth got treated, right? Because this is one incident on the bus, right? So this is one incident in the community. And there's so many, right? So I almost feel like I want to be part of that change, particularly for the young kids. As I'm raising my own kids, right? I see how my son is 8. People will look at him and think he's 13.
Wow.
But yeah, so think about that fact that if you look at a kid who's 13, you're expecting them to be developed as a 13-year-old, but he has the mind of an 8-year-old, right? So think of that a lot of Black kids get. There's a video I was watching this morning actually about the fact that when you look at somebody, particularly a Black youth, and you assume that they should behave a certain way because you think they're older.
Yeah.
Right? The expectations that get put on them at a young age, it's unrealistic.
And it's also like, I think it's also, people feel Black people are supposed to be in a certain place, right? You're supposed to act a certain way. It doesn't matter what your age is. You're supposed to act a certain way. I think that is still part of the society.
Yes, but particularly I'd say for the youth, when you've put that on them at such a young age, you've killed the things that come from creative thinking as a kid. So you meaning just being a kid, you have all these ideas and being creative and, just enjoying that. These kids don't even have a chance to do that, right? Because they've been taught to be at war at such a young age. Right?
What do you mean by like at war?
So meaning you're fighting for your space in society.
You're not just free to just be.
No, you're fighting for your space. So that's why I say you're at war. If you have to fight to just be who you are at such a young age, what does that do to your creativity? What does that do to your mindset? What does that do to your future, right? Yeah. So I think as you're talking about Toasted Soul, as you're talking about Blackness in Canada, I really hope these are the kind of conversations, because you need a platform to be able to have these kind of authentic conversations.
Yeah.
Because I don't see you having this conversation necessarily in a workplace, because it's not maybe deemed professional, right?
But I was talking to a friend of mine, and she works for Apple, and they had like a huge talk about this for like 3 or 4 meetings because they're working from home. And they had like a huge Black talk. It was weird.
It's weird.
Yeah, she's like, no, I'm like, what's the meeting about today? And she's like, we're talking about Black Lives Matter. I was like, wow. I think it was like 3 meetings in a row, like 3 different days. It was a big deal for them.
But when you do that in the workplace and there's all these raw emotions, right?
Yeah, I heard all the stories. It was crazy. I was like, oh.
So raw emotions in the workplace left on the table.
Yeah.
How do you clean that up in a workplace?
It's great that it's coming down from the top down too, right? And that they want to address it, but there is a lot of things that are
sensitive,
really uncomfortable, for them.
emotional, right?
Yeah, it was the stories that my friend was telling me. I was like, ooh, yeah, it was crazy. But
And then when
the thing is, it's happening. So I think that's the most important part. If it's messy and it's on the table, that's just how it is. This is our family. We just put some dirty shit on the table. We're gonna have to figure it out, right?
No, but the thing is, are people ready to deal with, like you said, it's messy, right? Are people ready to deal with the backlash? Because that is the reality, right? The reality is, no. I don't think that we're equipped to deal with that because this is new territory.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Let's call it what it is.
Territory, not to everybody. It's new territory I think for white people.
Yes.
Like it's always been there for us.
Yes.
But it's like they are uncomfortable with it because this is how you've been treating me, whether it's overtly treating me like this or you're just part of a system that treats me like this. And now you have to look at it, how ugly it is, and know that you are you are in a way directly responsible because you are part of the system and you allow this to happen. And now here, I'm putting it in your face.
No, but put it this way, they're ancestors, right? So
right.
Even if you didn't necessarily own a slave today, in some way you've benefited from white supremacy, right?
Exactly.
So even then, but okay, today you talking about in 2020, right? The raw emotion, how do both sides heal from that? When you've put that on the table in a place that is supposed to be quote and unquote professional, right? I don't have the answer to that because it's like I said, we both said it's new territory. So but I want to be mindful that as you are sharing at work, particularly people that are sharing at work, think, is that really the place to do that? And to be that vulnerable and to have that raw emotion at work, right?
Or maybe you don't overshare at work. I think that's how it's approached. I think you shouldn't overshare, but I think some people, no matter how much or how little you share, it's gonna bother them, right? So it's like I think just doing it is necessary, and damn that person's feelings if they get hurt because it's just something that's there and it needs to be addressed. So we can't be too shy not to share.
Yeah. So that's a good point.
It's good that companies are taking an active role in this because even this morning, just before I got on with you, they're talking about FedEx is going to remove their sponsorship from the Redskins or something like that until they change their name. So that's where it is, right? Like when you look at it, it's so blatant that it's money, right? Because now the Redskins they're talking about they're sitting down again. Because at first the owner's like, nope, there's no way in hell I'm changing the name. He was so adamant. Now they're gonna sit and talk about it. So it's about money, and these companies that we all give money to, like everybody has an iPhone, everybody goes and watches these sports games, and we're giving money and they're getting sponsored. So it's like that guy who owns the Redskins doesn't care. He's still going to get money. FedEx is still going to give him money. But now that FedEx is like, hey, we're not going to give you money because some shit's got to change before we move forward. This is a different climate, right? So it's like we as Black people, I think that's what it comes down to. And I've talked to other people about this before too, is that we need to realize it's not about us. We've been asking for so long, right? It's like, hey, dude, God put me here. God put you here. Just treat me like a fucking human being, right? And that's it. That's all I want. And the white man's like, nah, fuck that, right? So we have to realize what speaks is money. And until we start to get money, we start putting ourselves in places where it's like, yo, I own this shit, or yo, I got the money for this. There's not going to be any change. There's no incentive for them to change a system that works perfect for them, right? So that was like what stood out to me when I heard FedEx actually, the Redskins owner was now actually thinking like, hey, maybe we should sit down and talk about changing the name. It's like, because your money's about to leave you. Otherwise, he doesn't care. That's what it just basically says.
So that's more from the capitalist mindset, which is America runs on capitalism, right?
Yeah, it's money. That's it.
Yeah, the capitalist mindset is the bottom line is yeah. Well, we won't solve it all today, that's for sure.
No, but the thing is, it's like the ball has started to roll. That's what
Yeah.
it comes down to,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
starting to move, and I think that's like all the thousands of or hundreds of thousands of Black people and white people and Asians that have been fighting from 1601, whatever, from the very first time all the way up to now. Like, this is what they wanted. They just wanted
Yeah.
some kind of movement towards a better world for everybody. Hopefully this really makes an impact, but I've been saying that I'm skeptical that nothing's going to change. And from what I'm hearing about like the defund the police, and New York is like, yo, I'm cutting. At first I heard New York is like, I'm cutting $1 billion from the police force. I'm like, they have more than $1 billion to run a police force, right? And I find out it's $6 billion a year they get, but then I find out it's not really cutting $1 billion. And I'm like, there we go. They're like, well, this is how we're going to do it. It's not really cutting $1 billion from the force. So it's like, I was like, at first, everybody's like, yeah, things are changing. And I'm like, nah, let's see what this.
It's small progress.
Yeah,
it's small progress.
Yeah, they're not going to jump at it.
It's 400 years, right? Plus years of something, a system working. How are you going to come overnight and change it? Put that into perspective when you say that it's change, right?
But it's not going to.
Small progress.
Even that, it's like, that's what I'm saying, that they don't like, why would you change a system that works perfect for you?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like when New York did that, and they're like $1 billion, that was the headline. But then when you dug in and you read about it, they're like, okay, so it's really about 300 million, right? And so that's their budget is $6 billion, and they're going to change like 300 million or 400 million or somewhere around there, right?
And I think, you know what, you raise a good point. People need to dig into the stories. When you hear things, don't just read the headlines.
Yeah.
Right? You have to read sometimes the whole story. And when you read the story, you have to still think and say to yourself, does this make sense? Does this even add up? Right? Yeah. So I encourage people, especially in the world of Twitter, where it's like sound bites, right? Really sometimes read the whole article. Yeah. Right? Don't just focus on the sound bites and get carried away with whatever, right?
Our attention spans. I remember when I used to make websites back in the 90s, and you're studying about like how to do headlines, you're studying about how to put websites together, and you study about the people that are going to be looking at these websites. It used to be that it was 12 seconds attention time that you had for people, right? And now it's down to like under 6 seconds. Right?
Wow.
So people are just I know, it's crazy. And people are just reading headlines and going from that, but it's like so much deeper. And also the problem is the people that are writing these headlines are journalists, right? And they're getting scored or whatever, paid by getting eyeballs. So they just they're not real journalists anymore. They don't really care. They just want likes, right? They just want people to come to their stuff, and it's unfortunate. But like, you have to dig in deeper and know that what we would say the traditional journalism or news spaces are not real news spaces anymore. They're not like when we were growing up back in the 80s, and maybe it was the same thing in the 80s or the 90s, but we didn't know. I think we were too blind to the system back then. But now we have to realize that CNNs and all these things, they're all just like out for like, it's like social media, you know? It's like the new social media. Like they want to get likes too, right? That's why you have to, like, when you go to a website, they have a paywall. It's like your news. Why is there a paywall, right? So we have to recognize that they are just as bad as the guy sitting in his basement writing some crazy shit. It's just that because they put this fancy logo on it doesn't mean that it's the full story. And then companies are still companies. They want to make the money. Like they have to appease to their boards or whatever, their investors and shareholders, right?
No, it's complex issues, but hopefully, I think that the part that you and I really agreed on today was just the fact that whatever part we play, we all have a role to play, right? In this new emerging world that we're in. So I think if it's one thing I want to kind of leave, or the message I want to leave with, is the impact, right? So let's think of ways that we can be part of the change.
Yeah.
Even if it's, like we said, slow progress, I'm sure there are things you and I can do to make things better, right? So
Right.
I know with you, it's your platform using Toasted Soul to talk about issues that are important to our community. So I commend you on doing that. So whether it be as an entrepreneur, like you said, looking for ways in the IT space to show good representation, right, as a professional. So whatever your outlet is, I encourage people to be creative, to think out of the box, to think of ways to continue to impact change, not even for us, but for the next generation.
Right.
So even
And
if
we
it's
always do
in
for our
our
kids, right?
time, yes, even if it's not all in our time, hopefully for the next generation and the generation after that, that it will be better for them than it was for us. You know? Yeah. So that's what I wanted to leave you with. Unfortunately, I have to go.
No. Give me like 2 more minutes.
Okay.
2 more minutes. I just want to get to these questions. I have like 5 questions, and I usually ask 3 questions out of those 5 to everyone, just so I have a continuity, because someone might see this and be interested in hearing more about you and see how you answer these questions. So I'm just going to ask you 3 questions. Cool? So one question is, if I saw you on the street today, what kind of technology would you have on you? Like, what's your everyday carry, like technology-wise?
Oh, for me, it's my iPhone.
iPhone.
Just because I do everything with my iPhone. I do lots of home videos or home movies. So I use my iPhone to do that. I love pictures, to tell stories. So I do lots of pictures. It's what keeps me organized. So all my checklists of everything I have to do on my work life, home life is on my phone, right? So for me, it's a one-stop shop for me. I use it almost like it's my computer, right? So I do everything on my phone. Right?
That's all the tech you carry is a phone?
Is my phone. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's really it. I have a Fitbit watch, but I don't really, again, it's synced to my phone. So it's like, so everything is like iPhone.
Yeah. I have a Fitbit. I'm not wearing it, but you could probably see the tan line. I don't know if you can.
Yeah.
I'm giving it away. I'm giving it to my sister because she watched one of my episodes and she's like, "Hey, I heard you don't like your watch."
Oh.
So I'm like, "Yeah, Stace."
Yeah,
so I'm packaging it up. I'm sending it out today to her.
Yeah. So for me, it's my iPhone, and really, that's all I need, in my opinion.
So I could ask you what advice you would give as to entrepreneurs, but I think you've hit on quite a few things about that already. Let's see. Yeah, what makes you successful? What would you call or quantify as successful?
So I think we talked a lot about success, and I'll look at probably 3 different or 4 different areas, right? So for me, success for me has always been about people, right? Always been about people. Like, so when I think of right from the beginning, my first company was about event planning, caring for people, what people wanted to see, what people enjoyed, right? So again, first company was about entertaining people, right? I did a lot of conferences. I did parties, right? So that's it. So the second thing I would say I did, so going into my career, was working in banking. Again, people are the ones who really you're managing people's money. I moved into pensions. Again, about people who are retired, right? Coming back to teaching is really all about learning and people learning, right? So I find that my passions, the things I consider myself to be successful at, are about being impactful as it goes to people, right?
Helping people, basically.
Yes.
Cool.
So that's it. That's success for me.
Then the last one, just say some shit that they're gonna quote you out of context for when they come for you.
Oh, listen, review all the comments that I made earlier on. I'm sure there's some that if there were sound bites,
you're right.
If you took like a section of it about, even remember telling you the story about the police brutality one. Right. I'm sure there's tons of stuff there that I could say that you'd be like, what? Like sometimes if I was talking and maybe I've just started off the sentence. You don't even know where I'm going. I'm sure you could find something there to say. Oh my goodness, what is she talking about? Right? and then the conversation just starts going left, and you're like, that's not really what I meant. Is that what you heard?
Yeah, right.
Yes, I'm sure there's lots to find there.
And the thing is, when they come for you, they always find stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. If you're looking for stuff, you're gonna find it.
Yeah, and it's easy to quote people out of context. I'm like, I know that day's gonna come, and it's like, bring it on. Like,
yes, I know it's gonna come, and I'm not too fussed about it because I hope that people focus more on my intention,
right,
than what they heard.
Yeah.
Or what came out, right?
I'm like, bring it all day. I don't give a fuck. Tomorrow, the only thing that bothers me is, like, not even bothers me, but tomorrow I'll still wake up. You know what I mean? God's still gonna put breath in my lungs. So it's like,
well, here's the thing with that, right? If in my journey in life, I'm sure there will be times that I make mistakes. And I think I'm becoming, as I get older, I want to be big enough to say that if I do make a mistake, like if I say something that offended people, right? I should be big enough to say, you know what, I apologize.
But you're always going to say something that offends somebody. Do you realize that?
Right.
Like, look how sensitive every motherfucker is today. You're going to say something that offends everybody. So it's like, just live your life because they're living their life.
No, but then it doesn't mean if you offend somebody and you recognize. So it's one of those things where
I know, but I'm just saying, like,
no, if you offend somebody, Greg, and they bring it to your attention, and you hear what they're saying, right? I don't think there's anything wrong in saying I'm sorry.
No, I'm not saying don't say sorry. I'm just saying, like, it doesn't matter what you say. You can't edit yourself. You're gonna say something to offend somebody.
Yeah.
If you say up, someone's gonna be like, why not down? Why not down? If you say down, I'm like, why not up? Why not up? I'm offended, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, just go. Just don't hurt nobody, purposefully hurt nobody.
Yeah, so that's the part where I think that is where it is. That's the point I'm getting at, where maybe you have said something to prove a point, right? Or maybe in the way you're living or the way you're doing, right? And you know when you've done wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know it because you in your gut and in your.
You do though. Like,
sometimes listen. Sometimes I know I did wrong, right?
Okay, but like, say, like, the thing, me and my friend were talking about this before, and we're talking about pronouns and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't want to offend anybody, and I'm cool. Like, be whatever you want to be, but then don't get offended. Like, don't come at me when I'm like, if I said like a wrong pronoun. Like, how am I supposed to know? Like,
but if someone says to you, right?
No, someone says, hey, Greg, call me Cat, or whatever the case is. I'm gonna call you Cat. But dude, if I mess up one time, or if it's the first time, then you can't come at me. You know what I'm saying?
So give me an example, right? I've had a friend for, I don't know, almost 20 years. And I spell her name wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't intend to spell her name wrong, but the fact is, I've known you for 20 years, D. How could you mess that up?
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, I apologize.
But
do you know what I mean? Like that.
It's like, how you know how to pronounce your last name properly all the time.
Exactly, right? So somebody says to me, and put it this way, I typed it into Word, and autocorrect does me dirty.
Yeah, autocorrect does it all the time, man. I hate autocorrect.
But then I realized when she called it out to me, right? So I'm like, man, and the thing is, I know how to spell your name, because if you asked me, I would tell you how to spell it.
Yeah.
But I didn't even catch that. It happened to like two people. One I've known for 20 years. The other person, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm sorry, right? But the one that really got me was the person I've known for 20 years that I messed up her name, her last name, right? So what I'm saying to you is, there'll be times in life where you know you did wrong. Like, I'm not gonna say that was cool by any standard of mine, right? Like, you should know how to spell someone's name if you've known them that long, right? So what I'm saying to you is, there will be times where you know you messed up, and you know you have to say, I'm sorry, right? But what I also find too is that is, and I struggle with it too. Sometimes I just want to be right. You know what I mean? There's times where you, as you're growing older, particularly for people who are now becoming set in their ways, change is not easy.
No.
Saying I'm sorry is not easy, right? So I think that that's where, for those of us that are, so when you said to me, the question was more around what is something you'll say that someone will come for you. As the world is changing, and as consciousness or awareness into new things are coming, we have to be open to hear different opinions that may be different from what we were taught, right? So you cannot now say that I'm not gonna, like, the next generation are gonna have new things, right? So am I gonna hold on to what I knew to be true 20 years ago because I don't want to be I'm like, well, I don't care if that offends you. That's some new stuff that I don't care about. Like,
I'm just saying, like, you're trying to keep up, and there's just so much. Like,
there's so much.
Data is just so much. It's like I can't keep up that close, dude. I'm gonna respect you, but like, don't come at me if I mess up on a small thing. Just say, hey, Greg, you know what? I'd like to be called XYZ. Then hey, I'm gonna do my best. Remember, call this person XYZ. But it just seems like the stuff that I see is like people are just like at people. It's like, but anyways, Diane, I know you're. And one thing I want to say, the word sorry is hate that word. But anyway,
why?
That's for another. That's for another. Because I get that stuff all the time. I try not to mess up, and then people like they come at me, they mess up, and they use, oh, sorry. I'm like, sorry ain't shit to me. That's for a whole new podcast. That's the next time I have you back. But
that's a Canadian thing to say. I'm sorry, like Justin Bieber.
No, I'm saying like the regular Canadian sorry, like, oh, sorry, I bumped you walking through the hall. That's different. But like, I'm just saying when you really mess up and then you try to cover it with sorry.
Yeah.
It doesn't fly with me. That's all. It's like, you know better. You're a grown ass adult. Okay. Are there any plugs you want to put in? Like any IGs or Facebook or YouTube?
Oh my gosh.
Like, how can people find you?
No plugs, man. I just stay low key. You know me.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you most people have my number, so they could find me that way.
Right.
I'm not gonna put my number in a podcast, but
no public stuff that you want to promote right now.
Man, no public stuff I'm really promoting.
Right.
I mean, if you Google my name, you'll find me. LinkedIn. Right. Yeah, like you'll find me on LinkedIn. You'll find me on IG. Yeah, I use my name. So if you need, like, these days to find someone is not that difficult, right? Like,
yeah.
One of the things I really want to do more of is writing. But I would say, yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best way to track me down. That's something I check on a regular basis,
cool.
More so than my other platforms, so to speak. But yeah, I'm having fun right now, and at this point in my life, just doing things that I enjoy.
Thanks for coming on, and we'll do this again.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Bye.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of Toasted Soul. Thank you for listening and supporting Toasted Soul. Visit us at ToastedSoul.com to leave comments or book guest appearances and to get news on Toasted Soul. Please join us again next week. And as always, live with soul.